Hello and welcome to the UMass Amherst Career Development and Professional Connections Hub presentation on how to create a professional resume and cover letter. This brief presentation will provide a general overview of proper resume and cover letter etiquette, as well as some tips and tricks on how to write the best one for you. All right, so let's go over some resume basics. First off, keep it brief. For most of you, you're going to be looking at one page front only. You're no double-sided resumes. If you have a master's degree, if you have a PhD, then you may be going on to 2 pages for a master's potentially, or longer for like a CV for a PhD. But again, most of you will be looking at one page. We try to recommend not to use a template simply because it's a little bit harder to make revisions, to add experiences, skills, and things like that. If you are technologically savvy and very good at templates and making your own, feel free to do that. But again, a lot of people really struggle with templates, so that's why we kind of recommend not using them. Times New Roman or Calibri or Arial fonts, you're going to have a lot of different people looking at this. You're going to want to make sure it's easy for everyone to read. So keep that font to about a 12 point. It's going to be single spaced. You obviously can have, there's a next slide has a sample resume. So you'll see that it's single spaced, but then it also has, bigger spaces between the sections. I generally say black ink only. There are some you can use for like titles or things if you wanted to do another color. But again, just be aware of people who may struggle with seeing different colors, and you're also looking at potentially computers and robots that are going to be looking through your resume. You want to make sure that they actually can pick up the things that they need to pick up. So that's why we recommend black ink only. So this is one of the more important things, is keep a master resume, and you're going to pick and pull from that master resume for each position or prospect. So every experience that you have, all of your volunteer work, all of your, in the beginning, your coursework, things like that, you're going to want to put onto this big master resume. And then as you go and apply for new positions, you're going to pick and pull from that to best demonstrate the skills that this next position requires. I hope that makes sense. There's a lot of information about master resumes on our website and in general. But again, it's a very good practice to have all of your stuff in one place. So that way you don't have to go back and think about, what did I do at this job? You can it's sitting right there, and you can just copy and paste into the new position or the new resume for the new position. Again, you're going to tailor your resume to your field or to the job you're applying for. Kind of just spoke about that. Don't add pictures, word art, or anything like that. You can certainly have links to a portfolio or especially your LinkedIn if you have one. We do recommend you have a LinkedIn account. But yeah, you're not going to have any kind of fancy artwork in there. Consistency is key. So choosing one way of showcasing your experience throughout the resume, but also make sure that everything lines up properly. So all the bullets are the same, and wherever the dates are the same, things like that. Again, we'll have I'll be able to kind of show you this in a little bit on an actual resume. Again, update it often and update it thoroughly. That way you don't have to go think back to what happened a year ago and add that to it, which is really helpful if you just kind of keep it going as you have new projects and new experiences. And obviously get your resume checked, whether you use your career services, whether you use mentors, supervisors, friends, whatever, but certainly have multiple people look at your resume. All right, so here's just some nitty-gritty things that we want to just kind of remind you of. Again, include your URL to the LinkedIn profile. Also make sure that you've changed your URL so it's not just like a long combination of uppercase and numbers and lowercase letters. We want to make sure it's something memorable. So your first and last name, or first initial, last name, something like that. You're not going to want to copy and paste bullet points between different experiences. Even if you have 2 experiences that are pretty similar, you don't want to just copy and paste. Definitely rewrite it to make sure, to show that you care and that you actually put the time and effort into thinking about those experiences. They should be in reverse chronological order with the exception of positions you're currently in. So even if you started a position and you're still in that position, and you've other positions since or at the same time, you're going to make sure that those positions you're currently in are at the top. You're not going to write any demographic information on your resume, so like your date of birth or anything like that. That's can open you up for ageism, racism, things like that, and we don't want to. We want to obviously keep you away from that as much as possible. So that is, and again, most times like it's going to be illegal for someone to ask you about that anyway, so just keep it off. If you are past your second semester of sophomore year, you should not have anything on your resume from high school. You're going to want to get new experiences in college, whether it's volunteer work, extracurricular, co-curricular, things like that. That's what you're going to want to put on that resume. And again, be truthful. Don't exaggerate or fabricate. Even if a job seems kind of mundane, you're not, and everybody kind of knows what that job entails. You want to make sure that you wordsmith it, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but don't fabricate any information about what you actually did in that position. All right, so let's take a look at a resume. So I understand this might be a little hard to read, but there is a copy of this on our websites under the career toolkits, and I believe it's under resume packet. So you can certainly open that up and take a look at that if you would like to get a little bit, be able to read this a little bit better. The first thing I want to just kind of point out is the balance of blank space versus writing on this particular one. It's very nicely done in terms of that balance. We don't want to have too much writing because then it's kind of intimidating and jam-packed, and anyone reading it's kind of not going to want to read it because there's just so much writing. Versus if there's so much blank space, then it's going to appear like you're not very qualified, even though you might have all the qualifications necessary. So you want to make sure that balance is even. So the next thing here at the top, you can see the name, address, and that kind of the basic information. You don't need to have your street address unless you want to put it on there, as well as the zip code. That's not necessary. The email address we do recommend after I think it's in your senior year, you're going to want to start using a different, like whether it's a Gmail or AOL or Yahoo or whatever you have, you're going to want to start using that other email address. Just make sure it's professional. Your cell phone, contact information, things like that. So objective statements are outdated, but you can certainly put in a headline or a summary, but it's certainly not optional. I would also highly recommend that you talk to your mentors inside your individual industry to see if a headline or summary is kind of required or expected, because not every industry is kind of looking for that or expecting that. So I would definitely check with your resources to make sure that is something that you need to have on there or should have on there before you write one. Either way, it's not detrimental if you do. Again, it's completely optional. So as you can see, the education's at the top. Notice how all of the dates line up on that right margin over here. Everything lines up. That's what I'm talking about with that consistency thing. We want to make sure that all of that lines up nicely. Again, the same thing over here. All of the whatever's bolded, uppercase, underline, make sure all of that stays the same way, things like that. That's what we're talking about with over here with the be consistent with formatting. Those are little things that recruiters and employers will pick up on and may reflect negatively on you. So we want to make sure you look as professional as possible. So if you're kind of sitting here saying, I don't know if I have a lot of experience in a particular field, you may want to add relevant coursework in your education areas. So like this person here from Holyoke Community College added some media, government, journalism, and bias and ethical reporting. So that can kind of help you show that you have at least the theoretical and maybe some practical knowledge in that area, even if you don't actually have the experience there. Another key tip that I'll show here is notice how they have relevant experience and not just all experience or work experience. So you might have a lot of different jobs in your past, but you don't want to show all of them because you're going to have a very long resume and it needs to stick to one page like we talked about. So this is where you can say, okay, this is the relevant experience that I have to this job. And that way you can keep it shorter. Again, if you have other experience that is relevant in some other way, you can certainly add that like this person did here. At the end, you can see they highlighted their hard skills, so their computer skills, and then any languages they have. So if you have computer platforms or data or whatever that you're used to working with, You can certainly add that, as well as any languages you speak or any other skills that you want to add to that. It could be woodworking, it could be, you can add like little hobby skills in there. That's perfectly okay as well. Let's talk about transferable skills because they're some of the most important ones. So you may have had some jobs in high school or college that were part-time jobs and now you're going on to your career, or maybe you're here looking for information on like career changes and how to demonstrate skills across different industries. So here's just a couple really basic examples. So if you have like customer service, if you've done customer service in another position, it requires communication skills, problem solving, and hospitality. If you've been a babysitter, which most of us probably have, that shows that you're dependable, patient, and you're attuned to safety needs. If you waited on tables before, you have some people skills. You're probably able to follow directions, attention to detail, and people's orders, and you're good at working in a fast-paced environment. If you have done office work, again, procedures, confidentiality, familiar with different types of systems, things like that. So really think about even those jobs that may have been part-time or didn't really seem important, but think about the skills that you acquired while in those positions because they are certainly transferable to most other positions. We talked briefly about wordsmithing, and wordsmithing, your resume and your cover letter is incredibly important. What that means is simply using more descriptive and powerful words and action verbs to better describe what you did in a more professional way. So here's an example of a very basic description. So just typed, performed data entry, answered phones, and did receptionist duties. That does tell you what that person did, but it doesn't sound very powerful. It doesn't really kind of tell me about the workload that that person did or anything, or had rather, or anything like that. Instead, let's add some quantitative data, use some action verbs, and just make it sound a little bit more professional. It's also writing about what happened because of what you did and not just what you did. So, for example, instead of just performing data entry, this person performed data entry for 16 regional hearing officers as a member of an 8-person office team. So what that one sentence tells me is not only is this person skilled in performing data entry, they have a pretty high workload probably from the 16 regional hearing officers that they were working with, and they are a member of an 8-person team, so they're pretty good with teamwork as well. So again, I learned a whole bunch of different things from just one line, and that's the point. Again, assisted with email responses, distribution, report generation, and payroll inputs. That again tells me much more about what you actually did in that role versus just did receptionist duties. It also lets me know if I am going to hire you, what I might need to train you on or what you may already be skilled in doing. This last one, help purge a backlog of 1,000 obsolete files in the system. Again, it just kind of showed that was probably a pretty big project that you worked on, and it's just kind of that quantitative data that can help. With that particular one, you may even want to add a little bit more to that one, to talk about what that file, what kind of files they were, if maybe there's a confidentiality piece to that. Again, just showing off more skills. So if you're thinking about trying to wordsmith your resume, your cover letter, and you're like, how on earth do I come up with all these action verbs? If you click on that wordsmithing handout at the bottom there, that will bring you to a whole list in different subcategories of all kinds of action verbs that kind of mean similar things, but a little bit different. And that can kind of help you generate those sentences that are just a little bit better. All right. Let's move on to cover letters. First and foremost, make sure you need one. Not all industries require one. A lot of times the tech industries don't require a cover letter, but make sure you check with your mentors, your career centers, whoever you trust within that industry to find out. Also check the job description and see if they're requesting a cover letter with the documents that you would hand in. Secondly, it's no more than a page. Again, some industries might want a little bit shorter one, so maybe it's like a half a page. Others might want that full page. This is where, again, your resources and your mentors and your career services folks can really help you to tell you kind of how much you really should be doing. If you're unsure, I would go for about 3/4 of a page. That way you really answer you give them as much information as you can in that cover letter without being too wordy or too verbose about it. All right, so it does not need to include the address of who you're sending it to or the date like it used to, but what it should have at the top is the exact same header that is on your resume. So if you remember the Taylor transfer one from a couple slides ago, that whole header at the top with his his contact information rather, that should be on the top of your cover letter as well. So if you're applying for a job, then you've done some research into that company or that business or institution, and you've probably looked at their mission and statements and value statements, as well as the job description a few times. So in each of those things, you're going to find bits and pieces of information that you might want to include in your cover letter. So potentially in that first paragraph we're going to talk about in just a second, you could use it in there to kind of show that you've done your research, that there's maybe a project that they work on that you're particularly excited about, or maybe a mission, part of their mission or their values. Again, it just shows that you care, that you actually do want to work for that company, and that you've done your research. Again, when you look through that job description, kind of highlight the things that they're constantly repeated, because those are the things that are really important to them. Be confident in your abilities, in your experiences. It's okay to boast in your cover letter. Again, it's kind of in this next sentence as well, but resumes tell employers your qualifications, while cover letters really show them. So use this opportunity, this page of writing, to really show how qualified you are in your abilities and your experiences, whether that's through small little anecdotal stories that, again, are a sentence or two, things like that, to really make it very apparent how awesome you are. Like with your resume, have multiple eyes look at your cover letters before you send them out, making sure there's no typos or any kind of other errors or mistakes made. Make sure that the tone of the cover letter is matching what you want it to sound like. Sometimes we do have people come in and we take a look at their cover letters, and it's actually kind of coming across in a slightly different way than that person was intending. So that's why having people take a look at it is really, really important. Again, these are really, cover letters are pretty hard. They're kind of the hardest part of an application, but once you've done one, they do get a lot easier. So to just kind of hang in there, get through it, have people take a look at it, and then as you do more throughout your career, they will get easier. These are another thing, though, that you're going to want to tailor to each job. So you can't just like copy and paste from one cover letter to another. You're going to want to tailor that to the next job and the position you're applying for, the company or business that you're applying for. All right, here's a handout that we give out around cover letters. If you want a more an easier one to see, I would just click this link down here, cover letter handout, and you'll be able to see this and kind of zoom in on it a little bit more. But there's just a couple things I wanted to show here. At the top, I did cut out the heading because I wanted to make it bigger for you all to be able to see it. So make sure that heading is actually going up here. And try and use an actual person, the contact person name. If you don't have it, do search committee, hiring, internship, coordinator. We don't do the to whom it may concern. That just doesn't work anymore. So your first paragraph is where you need to stand out. So again, identify the position you're applying for, the purpose of the letter. If you saw the job or internship advertised somewhere. And the big thing is answer the question why you want the job and demonstrate the knowledge of the company by referencing that mission and values or some project they've worked on that you're really interested in. You were obviously enthusiastic about this job, which is why you're applying to it. So really demonstrate that enthusiasm in that first paragraph. In your second, you should talk mostly about your experiences and how you learn the skills that you have. So you're going to, again, give specific examples of your strongest qualifications and how they match the position requirements. Again, you're going to sell your relevant skills and experiences or transferable skills. If you're kind of changing careers, you're going to want to kind of highlight those transferable skills here. Again, describe how you're meeting the needs of the employer by providing evidence of the skills that you have. So again, those little anecdotes, quick little stories that you can tell. Again, that quantitative information is going to be very helpful here as well. Again, short narrative examples and showcase how your skills and experience are a match for the position. And again, this is where you show, not tell, right? We kind of talked about that at the last slide. The third one should mostly be about how your credentials would benefit the position you're applying for. So this isn't like what the company can do for you, it's what you can do for that company, right? So discuss how your experiences translate into what the job is. Give specific examples of what you've done and how those experiences can be used in this new position. Um, Again, building professionalism and necessary skills as well for you. And lastly, your closing, again, that one last kind of sentence that highlights your credentials and interest. Thank the employers for their time and suggest a kind of a plan, requesting an interview, a follow-up in 2 weeks, something like that. The other thing I will mention is if you were sitting here saying there's a job that you really want, but you're not sure if you there's maybe like one qualification that you're not sure about, if you have, I would say in this second paragraph would be where you might demonstrate how other skills, those kind of other skills are transferable and might make up for that one skill that you're maybe lacking. But you're not going to want to draw too much attention to that potentially lacking skill, but it would be a great place to kind of demonstrate that because they may be looking at your resume saying, I don't know if this person's qualified. But then as they see, oh, well, they've done this, this, and this in this other one, and that might be how you kind of get past that. So that would be my recommendation there. Again, all of this here is in this cover letter handout as well as some other links. So feel free to check that out. All right, so that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, need any more information, or maybe just need some of that industry-specific information, feel free to reach out to us. Again, we are the Career Development and Professional Connections Hub. When UMass is open, we are located in 511 Goodell. Otherwise, you can reach us at careerservices@umass.edu or contact us at 545-2224. We are still checking that phone number for voicemail, so feel free to leave us one there if you'd like. I hope this presentation was beneficial to you. Please stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you soon. All right, bye.